Chapter 6, Parts 1 and 2. Consequentialist Ethics, Act Utilitarianism, Utility and Consequentialism. We're going to begin with a story about Ed. A small pharmaceutical company is nearing what Ed Florence hopes will be his company's big break. After struggling for 15 years, the company's stock soared last fall when Ed announced a new drug that effectively controls seizures. Better still, the drug works in small doses, which appears ideal for children. One night, as Ed pores over the first 6 months' report on 2,800 human trials, a number grabs his attention. He specifically remembers more cases, but the report only mentions 2 patients who developed serious gastrointestinal problems, stomach bleeding, or perforations. Delving into the files, his anxiety grows as he finds records of 8, 10, and more patients showing the same symptoms. Slowly, the terrible truth dawns on Ed. A total of 20 such patients were mistakenly reported as 2, a simple decimal error. Yet, this means that 0.7% of the subjects develop serious problems rather than 0.07. The difference is substantial. In fact, with the uproar about drug risks over the past decade, Ed realizes that this difference could block FDA approval of his product. His exasperation nearly moves him to tears. Will this be the fatal blow to his dreams? For one fleeting moment, he's tempted to disregard everything and just pretend that nothing's wrong. As reality sets in, Ed realizes that there's more at stake than his company's prospects. Trials with 2,800 patients, including children, are still ongoing. In view of the risks, shouldn't he call for their immediate halt? Clearly, the answer depends on the consequences of doing this compared to continuing the trials. What are some likely consequences? On one hand, if the trials are halted, the rosy prospects for Ed's company will collapse for at least the near future. Several more years of research and testing may be required if the drug's problems can be solved at all. Those presently taking the drug will lose the benefit of their seizures being controlled. This loss becomes much greater for them if the best alternatives to Ed's drug are less effective, cost more, or particularly for those with serious or debilitating dangerous seizures. On the other hand, continued trials would produce important additional information about the drug, contributing to better and safer drugs that can help more people in the future. It would also help Ed's company, although probably only in the short run. Meanwhile, most of those taking the drug would continue to benefit, though a few might suffer some of the drug's worst side effects. This story brings us to consider a series of views that are known as consequentialism or consequentialist views. I think that we can all agree that all actions have consequences. Some of those consequences are wide-ranging, like in Ed's story. However, other times consequences are limited. The idea that consequences and only consequences make an action morally right or wrong is at the foundation of consequentialism. This idea is also the basis for a wide range of consequentialist moral theories that we're going to be looking at over the next couple of weeks. Now, we might wonder how we measure consequences. If consequentialism focuses on consequences, how could we evaluate these consequences? Consequentialists usually do this using a concept called utility. Utility measures the degree to which consequences promote the foundational hedonistic values of pleasure or happiness. So, utility is desirable and is associated with pleasure or happiness, while disutility is undesirable and is associated with pain and suffering. The consequences of an action are often mixed, bringing about both pleasures and pain, or happiness and unhappiness. In this situation, disutility is subtracted from utility. If the utility is greater, then the resulting utility is still positive. So here are a few examples. Eating a plate full of tacos will be very pleasurable, so this act has high utility and is therefore the right act in this situation. However, eating a plate full of gravel will not be pleasurable. This act has high disutility. But notice that if I eat too many tacos, I'll eventually not feel very good. We can assess the utility of this act, the act of eating too many tacos, by subtracting the disutility caused by not feeling good from the utility caused by the pleasure of eating the tacos. We then come to a conclusion about the overall utility or disutility and decide if it's an act that we should have taken. Now, you may have noticed that I've been talking about pleasure and happiness seemingly interchangeably. We might wonder if pleasure and happiness are the same. Pleasure can contribute to happiness, but it's also possible to enjoy a constant stream of pleasures and not be very happy. So, for example, in my taco example, it seems like eating the first plate of tacos can contribute to my happiness, but a constant stream of pleasures, in this case, a constant stream of tacos, may not make me very happy. One way that we might distinguish between pleasure and happiness is as follows. Pleasure is fairly immediate and short-lived. Pleasure is a kind of feeling. Happiness, on the other hand, is more of an ongoing state of mind that relates closely to personal fulfillment or achievement. Now, our book claims that happiness must somehow be grounded in reality because it's hard to imagine achieving genuine fulfillment through mere illusions. I'm going to ask you what you think of this last point.